She had finally fallen asleep after a long and tiring week. The plane was warm, the engine hummed softly, and the lights were dimmed. For the first time in days, she felt safe. She rested her head against the seat, breathing slowly, unaware that her life and the lives of every passenger around her were about to twist in a way no one could expect. She didn't even know she looked like someone who carried quiet strength. To others, she was just a normal traveler sitting by the window in seat 11A. She wore a simple hoodie, tied her hair loosely, and kept her hands wrapped around the blanket the crew had given her. No one knew she had spent years hiding a part of her past, something she never talked about. Something that made her different from the average passenger. Outside the aircraft, night covered the sky like a deep ocean. Stars flickered over the plane wings, and the aircraft moved smoothly through the clouds. Everything was calm. So calm that many passengers had already fallen asleep, headphones still plugged in, neck pillows half hanging, and unfinished movies frozen on screens. Then suddenly, everything changed. The intercom clicked. A sharp breath came from the front. And then the captain's voice burst through the speakers, trembling in panic. "Any fighter pilots on board? We need help right now." Her eyes snapped open. Her whole body jolted like someone had thrown ice water on her. She sat up straight, heart thumping, mind confused. For a moment, she wondered if it was a dream. But the screams and gasps around her told her it wasn't. Passengers looked at one, another. Some unbuckled their seatbelts in shock. Others whispered prayers, and some simply froze. Flight attendants rushed up the aisle, trying to keep people calm, but their faces showed fear they couldn't hide. She blinked hard, trying to focus. Why would a commercial flight ask for fighter pilots? That meant something serious. More serious than turbulence. More serious than a medical emergency. But she kept her head low. She didn't move. She didn't raise her hand. Nobody knew she had once trained in a secret aviation program. Nobody knew she could fly things far more complex than anything on this aircraft. She had left that life behind. She had promised herself never to touch anything related to the skies again. But the universe, it seemed, had different plans. The captain's voice returned, shaking even more this time. "If there is anyone with military aviation experience, please report to the front. This is urgent." A woman across the aisle started crying. A man held his child close. A group of travelers pulled out their phones, searching for information. But the Wi-Fi wasn't working. Her stomach tightened. Something was wrong, very wrong. She closed her eyes for a moment and tried to breathe. But her heart wouldn't settle. It kept repeating the same message inside her chest. You can help, even if you don't want to. She opened her eyes again. A flight attendant hurried down the aisle toward her section. Her eyes scanned the rows, desperate, as if looking for anyone who didn't seem afraid, anyone who looked like they could help. The attendant's gaze slowed when she looked at her. Maybe it was the way she sat upright. Maybe it was the calmness she forced onto her face. Maybe it was her posture, trained long ago, forgotten but still inside her. "Are you okay?" The attendant whispered, leaning closer. I don't know," she said softly, trying not to reveal her fear. "Please stay calm." The attendant said, though her voice cracked, "We're managing everything. We hope." That word told her everything. Something critical was happening. Inside the cockpit, people around her whispered wildly, "What happened? Why ask for fight? Is the captain sick?" But no one had answers. She looked out the window. All she saw was darkness, but deep inside that darkness, she sensed something she had learned to recognize many years ago. A strange feeling, a shift in energy, a change in the air. She swallowed hard. She had been out of aviation for years, but instincts never die. They sleep quietly, waiting for moments like this to return. Another announcement came. But this time, it wasn't the captain. It was the co-pilot, and his voice was even worse. "Ladies and gentlemen, "This is not a drill. Please remain in your seats. We are handling an unexpected situation." The plane tilted slightly, just enough for trained eyes to note. Her breath stopped. This wasn't normal. Her fingers trembled. She didn't want to go back to that world. She didn't want to remember the pain that made her quit her entire career. But one thought pushed through all the fear. If I don't go, people might die. In that moment, the plane shook again, just a small vibration, but enough to send a wave of panic through the cabin. A baby started crying. A man shouted for calm. A teenage girl held her mother's arm tightly. Everyone was scared. She took a deep breath. Her heart screamed. She unbuckled her seatbelt. Her hands were shaking. Her legs felt weak, but she stood anyway. The entire cabin seemed to hold its breath, because no one knew. The sleeping girl from seat 11A was about to walk toward the cockpit, even though she had promised herself she never would again. She moved slowly up the aisle, feeling every pair of eyes following her. People didn't know who she was or why. She was walking toward danger when everyone else. They only knew that someone finally was answering the captain's desperate call. The flight attendant from earlier noticed her and hurried over. "Do you have any flying experience?" she whispered, careful not to alarm the panicking passengers around them. She hesitated before answering. "A little," she said softly. That was an understatement, but she didn't want to draw attention. Her voice stayed calm, but inside her chest everything felt tight and heavy. Memories she had buried deep inside were beginning to rise again, memories she wasn't ready to face. "Please come with me," the attendant said, relief flooding her face. As she walked forward, the lights along the aisle flickered. A few passengers gasped. Someone shouted, asking what was happening, but the flight attendant kept moving without responding. She didn't want to start a wave of panic. When they reached the front section, the door separating economy and business class slid open. Suddenly, the mood changed completely. Business class passengers were quieter, but their fear was sharper, more controlled. Some whispered into phones, others stared out the window, trying to understand why the plane felt slightly tilted. She felt the tilt too. It was small, almost hidden, but she could sense it in the bones of the aircraft. The flight attendant leaned close. "Before I take you to the cockpit, I need you to stay calm. The situation is unusual." "What kind of unusual?" she asked. The attendant swallowed. "The captain didn't explain everything, but he said he saw something outside." Her heart thumped louder. "Outside, like another aircraft?" "I don't know," the attendant whispered. He sounded scared, really scared. That wasn't normal. A captain dealing with turbulence. Calm. A medical emergency? Calm. Even a malfunction? Calm. But this was the voice of someone facing something beyond routine. They reached the cockpit door, guarded by a second crew member. He looked shaken too. "She's the one," the attendant said. The crew member nodded and spoke into a small intercom. Beside the door, "Captain, someone is here. Claims experience." A few seconds passed. Then the lock clicked. The crew member opened the door only halfway. When she stepped inside, she instantly felt the tension. The cockpit was dim, lit only by screens and warning indicators that blinked in colors she recognized. Very well, colors that told her something wasn't right. The captain was strapped into his seat, breathing heavily. Sweat shone on his forehead. The co-pilot, younger and pale, kept staring out the windshield like he was seeing something he couldn't believe. The captain turned toward her. "What kind of flying experience do you have?" Her throat tightened. "Military training, former program. But I haven't flown in years." The captain's eyes widened with relief and fear mixed together. "Years still matter. We need every bit of help." "What's going on?" she asked. The captain motioned toward the windshield. "Look." She leaned forward. At first she saw nothing but darkness. Black sky, faint stars, thin layers of clouds. Then slowly something appeared in the distance. A shape, a small one. Something. Moving in a way no commercial aircraft should move. It wasn't steady. It wasn't following a path. It drifted, then stopped, then drifted again. Her heart dropped. Is that a drone? She asked. We don't know, the co-pilot whispered. It's been following us for 15 minutes. She stared harder. The object wasn't close enough to identify, but close enough to worry. Did you call air traffic control? No response, the captain said. Communications went weak the moment that thing showed up. She forced herself to breathe. Have you tried changing altitude? We did, the captain said, and it changed too. Like it copied us. A chill ran under her skin. So that's why you called for fighter pilots. Yes, he said. If we need to make any defensive maneuvers, I don't know how far this aircraft can handle it. And if that thing gets too close. His voice faded. She looked again at the strange moving object, small, blinking faintly. Unpredictable. She knew one thing for sure. That wasn't a normal drone. And it wasn't behaving like one. The captain leaned toward her. I don't need you to fly. I just need your eyes. Your instincts. If this thing tries to come close, I need someone who knows how to read the sky. Her pulse raced. She had walked into the cockpit, thinking she might help with a sick captain. Maybe a malfunction, maybe a brief emergency. But this was something else, something she hadn't trained for. Something no one on this plane had trained for, yet she nodded slowly. Tell me what you need. The captain let out a shaky breath. Stay here, he said. And don't look away from that thing, not even for a second. And as she stared into the dark sky, the strange object shifted again, this time faster, as if reacting to her presence, like it knew she was watching. She kept her eyes on the object outside the cockpit window, barely blinking. The longer she watched it, the more uneasy she felt. It didn't fly like anything she recognized. It didn't glide. It didn't circle. It didn't maintain altitude the way trained or programmed aircraft usually did. It hovered with intention, almost like it was watching them back. The captain adjusted a lever gently. The aircraft responded, shifting slightly to the left. The strange object drifted the same way, almost instantly, like a reflection in a dark mirror. She whispered, It's matching us. The co-pilot swallowed. Exactly. No matter what we do, it copies the movement a second later. She leaned closer to the windshield, studying the object's patterned small movements. Quick reactions, no visible lights except a faint pulse. And that pulse wasn't a regular blink. It was slow, then fast, then slow again, almost like a heartbeat. Her instincts whispered that this wasn't technology she had trained against. It wasn't behaving like a weapon, but it wasn't acting harmless either. It was almost curious. Has it come closer at any point? She asked quietly. Twice, the captain said. Both times I moved away. It didn't touch us, but it felt intentional. The plane shook lightly, not turbulence, but enough to make her step back. The co-pilot checked the panel, confused. Sensors are picking up something, but nothing is showing on radar. Meaning? She asked. Meaning, the co-pilot said. It's there to the human eye, but invisible to the instruments. She took a slow breath. She had seen many things during her training years ago, but nothing that worked on both visibility and invisibility. Like this, that made her feel a deep, cold uncertainty. Something she hadn't felt since she quit aviation entirely. The captain glanced at her. Do you think it's dangerous? She didn't answer immediately. She watched the object instead, noticing how it stayed just far enough to avoid panic but close enough to send warnings. Finally, she said, I think it wants something. The co-pilot looked at her sharply. What do you mean? It isn't attacking. It isn't blocking our path. It's not flying away. It's Observing. Observing what? The captain asked. She didn't know. But the answer came from the feeling in her chest, the same feeling she used to get during training missions when something unseen was tracking her movements through the sky. Before she could speak, a soft tap echoed through the cockpit. The captain gasped. What was that? Another tap, light, almost gentle dot. She stepped to the window, eyes narrowing. That thing wasn't close. It was far. So far that nothing should be able to touch them. But the taps continued. Then she realized it wasn't a physical tap. It was a signal. The object outside pulsed again, this time in a pattern. 2 slow pulses, 1 fast, 2 slow. 1 fast. A code. Captain, she whispered. It's signaling us. The captain stared. Are you sure? Yes. She didn't blink. This is intentional. The co-pilot leaned forward. But why us? Why this flight? Her answer came without thinking. Because we're alone in this part of the sky. The captain checked the radar again. The screen was nearly empty, except for their own aircraft symbol. Air traffic is light tonight. No nearby flights. Meaning they were isolated, meaning whatever this thing was chose them. A chill touched her spine. Passengers behind the cockpit door had no idea. The situation had changed from strange to far stranger. She could hear faint murmurs through the door, people asking about the tilt, the lights, the unusual. Silence. They had no clue something was sending coded pulses from the sky. She spoke quietly. Captain, keep our altitude steady. If it's signaling, sudden movements could trigger something. The captain nodded quickly, steadying the plane to avoid panic. The object pulsed again, this time slower. Almost waiting. She whispered. It wants a response. How do we respond? The co-pilot asked nervously. She stared at the blinking lights on the console. She wasn't trained for communication like this. She wasn't sure if responding was smart. But ignoring the signal could be worse. Then almost naturally, her hand reached toward the cockpit overhead panel where the landing light switch was located. Captain, she asked softly, permission to use the landing lights? He hesitated. You think it will understand that? It understood our movement, she replied. It might understand light too. The captain nodded slowly. Do it. Her fingers hovered over the switch. Her heart raced. The passengers, the crew. Everyone's lives felt like they were resting on this quiet moment. She flipped the lights on. 2 quick flashes. Then she waited. The cockpit felt frozen. The sky felt silent. Even the engine sounded distant. Then the object reacted. Slowly. Smoothly. It moved closer, a little closer, closer than it had ever come before. Her breath caught in her throat. The captain whispered, It saw your signal. Her hands trembled. She didn't know what this object was. She didn't know what it wanted. But now she knew one thing with certainty. Whatever it was, it wanted her attention, and it was coming toward the plane to get it. Asterisk, the object in the sky moved closer, slow enough not to cause panic, but steady enough to make her heart pound. She held her breath as it approached. It wasn't like any aircraft she had studied. Its shape shifted slightly, almost like it adjusted itself with every small movement. Not metal, not mechanical, something different. Something unfamiliar. The captain's voice was tight. Altitude stable. Engines normal, but it's getting too close. She nodded lightly, eyes fixed on the soft, glowing pulse of the strange object. Just keep steady. No sudden changes. Let's see what it wants. The co-pilot whispered, Why us? Why follow one plane in the dark? She didn't answer. She couldn't. Her instincts were trying to tell her something, but the message wasn't clear enough yet. All she knew was that this thing wasn't acting aggressive. If it wanted to cause harm, it had already had many chances. Instead, it seemed to be approaching with caution, almost like it didn't want to scare them. Another pulse came from it. Slow, calm, rhythmic dot. The captain looked at her. You think it's communicating again? Yes, she murmured. It's repeating the same pattern. She watched carefully. The object floated just outside the right window, far enough to avoid danger, but close enough that she could see. A faint shimmer surrounding it, like it wasn't just flying, but gliding through some kind of invisible field. She lifted a hand slightly, pointing to the co-pilot. Can you angle the wing camera? The co-pilot nodded and tapped the screen. A live feed appeared, showing the object from a different angle. It wasn't round like she thought. It wasn't sharp-edged either. It looked like a curved, smooth form shifting, gently like it was breathing. Passengers in the front row stared ahead, confused and frightened, though they couldn't see exactly what the cockpit saw. Some noticed her inside the cockpit through the slightly open door. A few of them whispered her name, not her real name, but something like "that woman helping the pilots." They didn't know her story, but they knew she wasn't an ordinary traveler anymore. The captain adjusted a switch. What do you think it wants? She inhaled slowly. Information. Awareness, maybe. It's trying to understand what we are. The co-pilot frowned. How can a flying object want understanding? She kept her eyes steady on the sky. Because it's not acting like a threat. It's acting curious. The captain looked at her with a mix of hope and fear. Then what do? We show calm, she said gently. We match its pace. We respond just enough to show we understand its signal. She reached toward the landing lights again, but this time she didn't flash them quickly. Instead, she switched them on 4. A long 3 seconds, then off, then on again, a slow response. Nothing alarming. Nothing fast enough to suggest danger. The object reacted again. This time, it didn't just move. It shifted shape. A soft ripple-like motion passed across its surface, like a wave traveling through water. She took a small step back in shock. But she didn't look away. What was that? The co-pilot whispered. It's reacting, she said quietly. It's acknowledging our signal. Then something unexpected happened. The lights inside the cockpit flickered. Not violently, just a soft dimming, like the plane was breathing too. The captain tapped the overhead panel, checking for electrical issues, but everything read normal. Captain, she said slowly, don't try to correct it. Let it stabilize on its own. He nodded, trusting her instinct more with every passing second. They waited. Just silence. Just the hum of the engines. Just the strange object outside, pulsing gently like it was sending its own heartbeat into the night. Then she noticed something new. The object was no longer copying their movement. It was guiding them, not pulling, not pushing, just leading. It drifted slightly ahead, then slowed, as if telling the plane to follow. A path formed. Through the dark clouds, clear air, smoother airflow, safer altitude. The captain raised his eyebrows. It found a stable path for us. She nodded. It's not hurting us, it's helping navigate. The co-pilot looked stunned. Why would it do that for a random passenger plane? She didn't have the answer. Not yet, but then she felt something, a small tug in her memory. A piece of her past she tried to bury. A moment from her old training, a moment when her instructors spoke about unidentified sky anomalies that didn't match any known technology. She pushed the thought away. This wasn't the time. The object slowed again, waiting for them to match its pace. She whispered, "It wants us to follow." The captain met her eyes. "Should we?" "Yes," she said softly. "For now. It hasn't harmed us. And whatever it's guiding us away from might be worse." The cabin lights flickered again, not out of danger, but like a quiet nod from the plane itself, as if it agreed. The strange object glided ahead through a clear path in the darkness. Plane followed slowly, but deep inside her chest, something tightened, because she realized something she didn't want to admit, whatever this thing was. It wasn't guiding the plane. It was guiding her. The strange object continued gliding through the night sky, and the plane followed it like a quiet shadow. The passengers had no idea how unusual the situation truly was. They only felt the smoother ride, the more stable air, and the absence of turbulence. Some thought the worst was over. Some tried to sleep again. Some whispered questions the crew couldn't answer. But inside the cockpit, the atmosphere was completely different. She watched the object lead them along a calm route. It didn't rush. It didn't turn sharply. It moved with a slow, gentle intention, almost like it wanted the plane to feel safe. But she couldn't understand why. The captain glanced at her. "Is it taking us somewhere?" She shook her head. "I don't know. But it's avoiding heavier clouds. It's guiding us through cleaner air." The co-pilot leaned forward. "Should we send a status update?" "Not yet," she said. Communications were weak earlier. And if we send the wrong signal while it's watching, we don't know what reaction it might trigger. The captain nodded, trusting her judgment more and more. Then, for the first time, she noticed something important. The object wasn't just guiding the plane. It was matching her movements. If she leaned slightly forward, the object pulsed once. If she breathed out sharply, it dimmed softly. If she stepped closer to the window, it drifted nearer. The realization hit her quietly but firmly. "It's reacting to me," she whispered. The captain turned. "To you specifically?" She nodded. Slowly. "Yes, it ignores the plane's small movements. But it reacts the moment I shift even a little." The co-pilot gulped. "Why you?" She didn't know how to answer. If she told them the truth, that she once trained in a classified program that studied unidentified sky patterns, would they believe her? Would it cause more panic? Would it raise more questions she didn't want to face? Instead, she said softly, "Maybe it senses familiarity. Maybe something about me matches something it recognizes." The captain didn't argue. He only said, "Whatever connection you have, use it carefully." She nodded. Her throat felt dry. As the object guided them forward, something changed in its motion. Instead of gliding ahead, it suddenly slowed and shifted to the side. It hovered next to the cockpit at a steady distance, like it wanted their attention again. Its faint glow brightened, creating a soft reflection on the cockpit glass. She stepped closer. "Something's different," she whispered. The captain adjusted the plane slightly, but the object didn't copy him this time. It stayed fixed at the same distance from her, almost like it was watching her directly. She raised a hand slowly, not touching the glass, just lifting it, as if she was greeting it. The object pulsed lightly in response. A soft hum vibrated through the air, not loud, not frightening. Just a gentle resonance that she could feel more than hear, like a vibration inside her chest. The co-pilot stiffened. "What is that sound?" She didn't blink. "It's not sound. It's communication." The captain stared. "Communicating what?" She exhaled slowly. "I think it's asking something." The co-pilot whispered. "Asking? What could it possibly ask a human on a random flight?" She didn't know. But then another sensation washed over her, something she hadn't felt in years. Recognition. A feeling from her past training days when instructors taught her to read sky signals flashes. Patterns, unknown shapes moving in ways normal aircraft could never mimic. She'd seen recordings of objects behaving with curiosity, not aggression. Back then, she thought those lessons were useless. Now she realized they were preparation. The object pulsed again, this time softer, longer, as if waiting. The captain whispered, "Is it waiting for your answer?" She nodded. Her voice came out so quiet, it felt like she was speaking only to the sky. "It wants reassurance. It wants to know we understand, and that we're not a threat." The co-pilot looked terrified. "How do we reassure that thing?" She pointed toward the overhead lights. "The same way it spoke to us. Signals. Slow pulses." The captain swallowed. "Do it," She lifted her hand again to the landing light switch. But this time she didn't flash anything fast or sharp. Instead, she created a soft pattern. One long light. Pause. Two small flashes. Pause. One long. A calm response. A peaceful message. The cockpit fell silent. She waited. The object floated still. Then very slowly. It drifted closer, just a little, but enough to send everyone's heartbeat racing. Its glow softened. Its edges blurred gently. It wasn't menacing. It wasn't chaotic. It felt like respect. The object pulsed in a new rhythm, slow, steady, almost like appreciation. The captain exhaled shakily. That looked like a thank you. She didn't speak. She was still frozen, staring at the strange thing moving with a grace. She couldn't explain, because deep in her heart, she felt something she didn't expect. The object wasn't just guiding the plane or communicating. It was trying to protect her. But from what? And why her? Asterisk. The cockpit felt strangely warm now, even though the air was cool. She could feel her heartbeat slowing down, not from comfort, but from a strange sense of connection she couldn't explain. The object outside wasn't just reacting anymore, it was behaving as if it understood. Her presence on a level that went beyond logic. It floated beside the cockpit window like a silent companion. Its glow softened into something almost gentle, like it didn't want to frighten the humans watching it. The captain and co-pilot stared at it with wide eyes, but she felt something different, something personal, something deeper. The captain whispered, "It's waiting again." She nodded. "For me." The co-pilot swallowed. Why would it care about one person out of 200 passengers? She didn't have an easy answer, but she felt something growing at the back of her mind, an old memory she had avoided for years. During her early training days, before she quit aviation forever, she had once seen a classified file videos captured during high-altitude missions. Strange floating shapes, similar to this one, had been recorded but never explained. They didn't behave like a threat. They behaved like watchers, drifting near jets as if studying their movements. The instructors never gave full details. They only said, "Some sky patterns are not meant to be feared. They appear only to certain pilots. They follow instinct, not hostility." She never believed it, but tonight, that memory came back with full force. Maybe this object wasn't following the plane. Maybe it wasn't studying the aircraft. Maybe it had sensed her the moment she woke up. She stepped a little closer to the glass. The object pulsed softly, one long glow, slow and calm. The captain whispered, "It knows you're near." She felt her chest tighten. Yes, it knows. Outside, clouds parted, revealing a clearer section of the sky. The object drifted ahead. Again, then slowed, almost inviting the plane to follow. But this time, something about its path was different. It wasn't just guiding them through smooth air. It was moving them toward a specific direction, a place, a location. The co-pilot checked the navigation screen. "Captain, the Kokoma. The object is guiding us slightly off our set route." The captain looked conflicted. "We can't follow something unknown forever." She placed a hand gently on the back of his seat. "It hasn't harmed us. It hasn't pushed us into danger. If it wanted to take control, it could have done it long ago." The captain looked at her face, different now, calm but firm, filled with a quiet determination he didn't fully understand. After a moment, he nodded. "We'll follow, but only slightly. No major deviation." The plane adjusted gently, barely enough for passengers to notice. But the object reacted instantly. It brightened, then drifted forward with smoother, more confident motion. As if satisfied, the co-pilot whispered, "I can't believe we're letting that thing guide us." She said softly, "Sometimes the sky gives signs before giving answers." The cockpit fell quiet. Minutes passed. The object floated ahead, leading them through pockets of stable air. The ride became so smooth, the turbulence felt like it had never existed. Even the engine sounded softer. But then the plane entered a darker stretch of sky, a region thick with cloud shadows. It wasn't dangerous, but it felt heavier, quieter. The kind of quiet that makes people look around nervously. The passengers began whispering again. Some pressed call buttons. Some asked flight attendants what was happening. But the crew didn't know how to explain something they didn't understand themselves. Inside the cockpit, she leaned forward slightly. It's slowing again. The object hovered just ahead, pulsing slowly. 1, 2, pause. 1, 2, pause. It was a calming rhythm, almost like a steady heartbeat guiding them through the dark. Then suddenly, everything inside the cockpit flickered, not violently, not dangerously, just a blink. The captain stiffened. Electrical? No, she whispered. It's responding to something around us. Another flicker. A gentle shake of the aircraft. Then the co-pilot looked at his screen and froze. Captain, look at this. A weather system had formed far ahead, a fast-moving storm they would have flown straight into if the object hadn't guided them away earlier. The captain exhaled in disbelief. It saved us from entering that storm. She nodded tightly. It wasn't guiding us randomly. It was keeping us away from danger from the start. The co-pilot whispered, then why does it keep watching her? She looked at him, then back at the glowing object outside. I think it recognized something in me, she said quietly. Something I never understood in myself. The captain turned slowly. And what's that? She breathed deeply. That. The sky isn't finished with me yet. As if hearing her, the object pulsed one bright, soft glow, almost like a response, almost like agreement. Asterisk. The aircraft sailed quietly beside the strange glowing object, both moving through the night sky, like two travelers who had somehow found each other in the middle of darkness. She kept her eyes on it, unable to pull her attention away. It felt like looking into something familiar, yet impossible to explain. The captain glanced at her. Whatever it is, I think it's waiting for something again. She nodded. Yes. It's not done, the co-pilot whispered. Done with what? She didn't answer. She wasn't sure she could explain it, even if she tried. Her thoughts kept circling the same feeling, the same quiet pull she felt earlier. Not fear, not danger, but recognition. Like the object wasn't a stranger at all. Suddenly, the object slowed sharply and positioned itself almost directly in front of the cockpit. Not dangerously close, just close enough that its glow covered the windshield in a soft, shimmering light. The cockpit fell completely silent. The passengers behind the door felt the change too. Conversations stopped. People looked around, waiting for an announcement, holding on to hope that everything was still normal. The object brightened, then dimmed, then brightened again. Slowly, gently, intentionally. The captain whispered, "It's signaling again." But this time she felt the signal like a soft vibration deep in her chest, not through her ears or eyes. Something inside her responded automatically, like a memory she had forgotten how to read suddenly came alive. She stepped closer to the glass. The object mirrored her movement. The captain and co-pilot watched her, unsure if they should speak or stay silent. Then it happened. The object shifted. Not in shape, but in quality. The glow softened into a pattern, small waves of light, one after another. A calm, rhythmic flow that felt less like a code, and more like an emotion, a message without words, a greeting. Or maybe a farewell. She whispered without thinking, "It's telling us we're safe now." The captain stared at her. "How can you tell?" "I just know," she said quietly. "Whatever it wanted, whatever it needed to do, it has finished." The co-pilot leaned back in his seat. So it wasn't a threat, it was protecting us. She nodded slowly. Yes, it saved this plane, and now. Her voice faded as the object shifted again, drifting slightly upward. Not away from the plane, just to a higher position, as if giving them space. Then something unexpected happened on the navigation screen. A stable path appeared, clear air corridor, no turbulence, no storms, perfect altitude for the rest of the journey. A path the pilots could trust. The captain checked the instruments twice. This is incredible. It's showing a clear route all the way to the main corridor. The object pulsed one last time, a soft, almost peaceful glow. Then slowly, gracefully, it began to lift higher into the darkness. The plane didn't shake. The lights didn't flicker. There was no dramatic exit. It simply rose upward, drifting away like a quiet guardian, returning to wherever it came from. "Wait," the co-pilot whispered. "It's leaving?" She placed her fingers against the window, not touching it, just letting her hand hover there. "Yes," she said softly. "It came for a reason. Now that reason is done." The captain watched the object disappear into the sky until it was nothing more than a faint spark, smaller than a star. A long silence filled the cockpit. Then the captain spoke with deep relief. "We're back on a safe route. I'll make an announcement soon." She nodded, stepping back. Suddenly the weight of everything hit her, the tension, the hours of watching, the responsibility she didn't expect to carry. Her legs felt weak, but the captain gently touched her arm. "You saved us," he said quietly. "If you hadn't stepped forward, I don't know what would have happened." She shook her head. "I didn't save anyone alone. The sky did." But inside, she knew the truth. The object didn't come for the plane. It didn't come for the captain. It didn't come for the hundreds of passengers. It came for her, because it recognized something she couldn't hide anymore, the part of her that belonged to the sky, no matter how much she had tried to let it go. The captain opened the cockpit door. "You should rest. The crew will keep passengers calm." She stepped out slowly. Passengers stared at her with a mixture of respect, curiosity, and silent gratitude. No one knew exactly what happened, but they knew she had gone into the cockpit when everyone else stayed in their seats. Some whispered, "Thank you." Some nodded at her with quiet respect. She gave a small smile, tired but genuine, as she returned to seat 11A, the seat where she had been sleeping peacefully. Just hours earlier, she looked out the window one last time. The dark sky stretched far and endless. The glowing object was gone, but the feeling it left behind stayed in her chest like a warm echo, a message she understood without words. You were meant to wake up. She closed her eyes, leaned her head against the seat, and finally let out a long, slow breath. The sky hadn't finished with her. And maybe she wasn't finished with the sky either.